So we're joining here for morning prayer on Maundy Thursday as we begin what's known as the Triduum, which simply means 3 days, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, this specifically holy time before Easter. And so in recognition of that, our morning prayers over today and tomorrow are going to be a little bit longer than normal. If you'd like to stay for a longer time, obviously, you're watching on Facebook, you can go whenever you like. Today I'm going to do the normal morning prayer order of service that we've been using. So that'll be the normal sort of 15 minutes or so. But then I'm going to stay here live with you in silence as we do something similar to the tradition of a watch for Maundy Thursday, where we sit with Jesus in the garden. I hummed and hawed about how long to do it for. Traditionally, you'd do it for an hour, 2, 3 hours. 15 minutes seems a bit token in some ways, but on the other hand, I think with this live scenario, I think longer than that wouldn't really work. Obviously, when I finish, you're very welcome to spend longer having started into it together. It's normally done in the evening, which mirrors the story. So it might be that you'd like to spend some time back quietly again in your room or in your garden with a candle, perhaps with a plant or two this evening, and maybe just sit and have some silence then. You could even, if you wanted to, have the second part of this Facebook thing playing again at that point, so that we would just have that sense of being together again in the evening. So obviously you can finish at the end of the morning prayer liturgy, or you can stay with me for that 15 minutes. And the picture that I've got here today, I'm going to sneeze. Hay fever out in the garden's a problem. No, it'll come in a moment. The picture that I've got here from our Stations of the Cross, which we'll be using tomorrow. We'll use all the ones that were done in a workshop at the beginning of Lent, which Richard Popperwell lent. And this is by Kath Pace, who I know is watching. Hi Kath, thank you very much. So we'll talk more about this in a bit. So on our opening words. We come into this time and space and offer ourselves, our time, and these moments of stillness to God. We leave aside for this while our cares and concerns, our fears and frustrations. Or if we cannot lay them aside, we bring them with us into this space and offer them to God. God, who in Jesus could hold stillness at the centre of the crowd's adulation, calm in the face of a friend's betrayal, and silence before the questioning of power. Be with us in our involuntary and chosen stillness this Holy Week. Help us, we pray, to embrace it, to allow ourselves to be challenged by it, and to encounter you afresh in it. Amen. Jesus, you were adored by the crowd, and then they turned upon you. We struggle not to be carried along by popular opinion. Lord, have mercy. Jesus, you overturned the tables in the temple and drove out the moneylenders and profiteers. We struggle not to be seduced by money and profit. Christ, have mercy. Jesus, you asked your disciples to watch through the night with you. We struggle to give you our full attention. Lord, have mercy. Jesus, you forgave those who nailed you to the cross, promised a dying criminal he would be with you that day in paradise, and fed even your betrayer. Grant us with them the assurance of your unquenchable love. Amen. So quite a substantial Bible reading today as we hear the story of Maundy Thursday. And we're on chapter 26 of Matthew's Gospel. And I'm going to start where we left off yesterday at verse 17. And then go through to Jesus' betrayal in the garden. On the first day of the festival of unleavened bread, the disciples came to Jesus and asked, "Where do you want us to make the preparations for you to eat the Passover?" He replied, "Go into the city to a certain man and tell him, 'The teacher says, my appointed time is near. I am going to celebrate the Passover with my disciples in your house.'" So the disciples did as Jesus directed them and prepared the Passover. When evening came, Jesus was reclining at the table with the 12. And while they were eating, he said, "Truly I tell you, one of you will betray me." They were very sad and began to say to him one after the other, "Surely you don't mean me, Lord?" Jesus replied, "The one who has dipped his hand into the bowl with me will betray me. The Son of Man will go, just as it is written about him. But woe to the man who betrays the Son of Man. It would be better for him if he had not been born." Then Judas, the one who would betray him, said, "Surely you don't mean me, Rabbi?" Jesus answered, "You have said so." While they were eating, Jesus took bread, and when he had given thanks, he broke it and gave it to his disciples, saying, "Take and eat. This is my body." Then he took a cup, and when he had given thanks, he gave it to them, saying, "Drink from it, all of you. This is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. I tell you, I will not drink from this fruit of the vine from now on, until that day when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom." And when they had sung a hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives. Then Jesus told them, "This very night you will all fall away on account of me. For it is written, 'I will strike the shepherd, and the flock will be scattered.' But after I have risen, I will go ahead of you into Galilee." Peter replied, "Even if all fall away on account of you, I never will." "Truly I tell you," Jesus answered, "this very night, before the cock crows, you will disown me 3 times." But Peter declared, "Even if I have to die with you, I will never disown you." And all the other disciples said the same. Then Jesus went with his disciples to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to them, "Sit here, while I go over there and pray." He took Peter and the 2 sons of Zebedee with him, and he began to be sorrowful and troubled. Then he said to them, "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. Stay here and keep watch with me." Going a little further, he fell with his face to the ground and prayed, "My Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me. Yet not as I will, but as you will." Then he returned to his disciples and found them sleeping. "Couldn't you watch with me for 1 hour?" he asked Peter. "Watch and pray, so that you will not fall into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak." He went away a second time and prayed, "My Father, if it is not possible for this cup to be taken away unless I drink it, may your will be done." When he came back, he again found them sleeping, because their eyes were heavy. So he left them and went away once more and prayed the third time, saying the same thing. Then he returned to his disciples and said to them, "Are you still sleeping and resting? Look, the hour has come and the Son of Man is delivered into the hands of sinners. Rise, let us go. Here comes my betrayer." While he was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12, arrived. With him was a large crowd armed with swords and clubs, sent from the chief priests and the elders of the people. Now the betrayer had arranged a sign with them. "The one I kiss is the man. Arrest him." Going at once to Jesus, Judas said, "Greetings, Rabbi," and kissed him. Jesus replied, "Do what you came for, friend." Then the men stepped forward, seized Jesus, and arrested him. With that, one of Jesus' companions reached for his sword, drew it out, and struck the servant of the high priest, cutting off his ear. "Put your sword back in its place," Jesus said to him. "For all who draw the sword will die by the sword. Do you think I cannot call on my Father, and he will at once put at my disposal more than 12 legions of angels? But how then would the scriptures be fulfilled that say it must happen in this way?" In that hour, Jesus said to the crowd, "Am I leading a rebellion that you have come out with swords and clubs to capture me? Every day I sat in the temple courts teaching, and you did not arrest me. But this has all taken place, that the writings of the prophets might be fulfilled." Then all the disciples deserted him and fled. We'll hear the central part of that reading, the specific part in the Garden of Gethsemane, the watch reading, again, when we begin the watch at the end. And I don't propose to have a long discussion about that reading today, more just to leave us to sit with it. But I do want to read to you just the little bit that Kath sent to me about this picture. See, she's depicted in our biblical stations that we're going to use tomorrow, this central episode. And this is what Kath sent me about it. She said, "I think I find Jesus praying in the Garden of Gethsemane one of the times I most relate to him. It's comforting to know that he struggles like the rest of us. That line, 'My soul is sorrowful even to death, really stood out to me as someone who suffers from depression. I know what it's like to be in that darker place. She says, I'm still very new to Christianity and I don't understand Jesus a lot of the time, but this is one of the times I really get where he's coming from. And I also find the failure of the disciples in this whole episode incredibly comforting and reassuring. This is a passage that we often reflect on in ordination training, both when I was training myself and when I was training, when I've been training and helping train other people. And whenever you start thinking about following Jesus, whether that's as a priest or in any other sense, just as a Christian, you pretty quickly start feeling like a complete failure. And actually that's one of the things that I hear most often from people who are struggling to take a step of commitment, that they feel they're not good enough. Their faith isn't pure enough, they haven't got all the answers yet. And until they're perfect, they couldn't become Christian. It's not right, a lot of people think, to call yourself a Christian or to call yourself a member of a church when you haven't got it completely right, completely perfect, don't know all the answers, aren't sure of the level of your commitment. And let me tell you, that doesn't... How long have I been ordained now? 16 or 17 years. That doesn't stop. You still feel that sense that you're not doing enough. And I know a lot of clergy are struggling with that at the moment. I'm shielding for 12 weeks. I'm not out there being active, helping people, delivering shopping to people's doors. This is really all I can do. This and pray for you all. And we constantly feel, I think all of us, a sense of guilt that we're not doing more. And that can be very destructive, and it can drive us away because we end up thinking, well, if I can't do everything, I might as well not bother. And so I do find this story of human failure at the heart of the Easter story, at the heart of this story of Holy Week. Incredibly helpful and incredibly moving to know that even those 12 disciples, even Peter, the rock, Jesus said, on whom the church is built, failed to follow Jesus to the end. This is to be expected. This is normal. How arrogant it would be of us to think we were going to be better disciples than them. We talk a lot in the church at the moment about discipleship. Discipleship is as much about our acceptance of our failure as it is about doing Christianity well. Chrissy's just noted George Herbert's poem Love. Absolutely, love through. That sense of love bade me welcome, but my soul drew back, guilty of dust and sin. I love that poem. That would be a really good poem to find online and read today. So let's move into our prayers of intercession. I will attempt to light this candle. It's possible it may be blown out. It's not very windy, and it is in a glass, so let's see. So I invite you to bring in the comments or in silence your own prayers of intercession, the things that are on our hearts today. We continue to pray for all those who are in hospital, for all those struggling particularly with coronavirus, for all those struggling for breath and for their lives. We continue to pray for our Prime Minister among those who are affected, and for the whole Cabinet, continuing to coordinate our response. And as I contemplate this picture, I pray for all those who were already before this struggling with anxiety or depression, and pray for them to be kept safe in this time, in this time of heightened anxiety. As I sit in my beautiful garden, which I still find it hard to believe I've been so blessed with. I pray for all those who are having to cope with isolation and lockdown in places, in small flats or rooms without outdoor space, and particularly for those with children, and for those I know with children with ASD, with autistic children who are particularly struggling with not being able to go out into public space enough to burn off the energy they need to. And I give thanks that my own particular autistic children are rather enjoying isolation in their rooms and don't have that particular struggle. If you've just joined us, we're having a time of prayer, so if you'd like to read and pray through the comments, and if you'd like to add your own. So let's take all our thoughts and prayers, whether they've been typed in or whether we've kept them in our hearts, and join them all together with all the things that we can't quite put into words in the Lord's Prayer. I'm going to use the traditional version, as I have been doing all week. Feel free to join in with whichever version or language is most familiar to you. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. And our closing affirmation. In the circle of God's love, we are one. The circle is never broken. In the light of God's welcome, we are one. The light never goes out. Let the child teach us the wisdom of play. Let the adult teach us the gentleness of care. May the circle surround us when we are apart. May the light draw us together again. Amen. I'll use the blessing at the end of our 15-minute watch. So I invite you now to remain with me in silence for 15 minutes. I'm just going to read again the Gethsemane part of the Gospel reading we had today, and then we'll join together in silence for 15 minutes, and I'll end with a prayer of blessing. About every 5 minutes or so, if new people are joining us, I might just say what we're doing briefly. Then Jesus went with his disciples to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to them, "Sit here while I go over there to pray." He took Peter and the 2 sons of Zebedee with him, and he began to be sorrowful and troubled. Then he said to them, "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. Stay here and keep watch with me." Going a little further, he fell with his face to the ground and prayed, "My Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me. Yet not as I will, but as you will." Then he returned to the disciples and found them sleeping. "Couldn't you watch with me for 1 hour?" he asked Peter. "Watch and pray, so that you will not fall into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak." He went away a second time and prayed, "My Father, if it is not possible for this cup to be taken away unless I drink it, may your will be done." When he came back, he again found them sleeping, because their eyes were heavy. So he left them and went away once more and prayed the 3rd time, saying the same thing. Then he returned to his disciples and said to them, "Are you still sleeping and resting? Look, the hour has come, and the Son of Man is delivered into the hands of sinners. Rise, let us go. Here comes my betrayer." So as we come to the end of this short watch together, I'm going to pray the prayer of blessing and then say goodbye and leave you to your quiet enjoyment of this Holy Maundy Thursday. I invite you to spend more time in quiet reflection, perhaps looking at that reading for yourself later on in the day again. And then I'll see you again here tomorrow at 9:15, where we will go around all the Stations of the Cross pictures that have been prepared. Again, that will be a slightly longer time together, maybe 30 or 40 minutes, to allow us to go around each picture. But of course, spend as long or a shorter time with us as you can. So as we watch with Christ this day and walk the way of the cross this week, may God grant us courage, peace, patience and perseverance. And may the blessing of God be with you all and fill your homes and wherever you are with God's peace, comfort and joy. Amen.